Racist Karen bullies the wrong black man. She never thought this would happen. It was a typical Saturday afternoon at the local grocery store. Shoppers moved through the aisles, scanning shelves and filling their carts. The air hummed with a murmur of conversations and the occasional clatter of a cart. In the produce section, Marcus, a well-dressed man in his 40s, quietly picked out apples. He hummed softly to himself, enjoying a peaceful moment amidst the weekend rush. A few feet away, Karen, a middle-aged woman with a sharp look in her eye, browsed through the same section. She spotted Marcus and immediately narrowed her eyes, her lips pressing into a thin line. As she watched him pick up a bag of oranges, something inside of her seemed to snap. She marched over, her heels clicking sharply against the floor, and her voice cut through the background noise, sharp and accusing. She told Marcus she was taking too many oranges, her tone dripping with suspicion. Marcus paused, surprised by her hostility, but tried to keep his cool. He gestured politely to the overflowing display, explaining that there were plenty for everyone. But Karen didn't seem to care. She raised her voice, claiming that he was out of place and making her feel uncomfortable. Marcus's brows furrowed, but he kept his tone steady, trying to reason with her. He couldn't understand why she was targeting him, but he hoped a calm response might end the confrontation. Around them, a few shoppers began to slow down, glancing curiously in their direction. Karen noticed the growing audience and seemed to thrive on it, her accusations becoming louder and more pointed. She insisted that Marcus was harassing her, her voice carrying across the store. Marcus's heart sank as he realized people were beginning to take notice, some pulling out their phones to record. He glanced around, seeing the mixture of curiosity and uncertainty in their faces. He had been in uncomfortable situations before, but this felt different, more public, more dangerous. Welcome back to PlotTwister. Before we unravel today's mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're always in the loop. As the tension built, Marcus saw the store manager approaching, a concerned look on his face. Karen immediately directed her complaints at him, demanding that Marcus be removed from the store. Marcus watched the scene unfold, feeling a knot form in his stomach. He knew this wasn't going to end quickly, but he never imagined just how far Karen would go to try to get her way. Karen's voice cut through the store like a knife, her accusations growing bolder as she pointed a finger at Marcus. She claimed he was harassing her, insisting that she didn't feel safe. Her words echoed through the aisles, drawing more curious eyes toward the scene. Marcus tried to stay calm, his hands clenched at his sides, but he could feel frustration boiling beneath the surface. He had done nothing wrong, and yet he found himself defending his right to simply shop in peace. The store manager, Tom, arrived, his expression uneasy as he tried to mediate the situation. He glanced between Karen, who was now visibly upset, and Marcus, who stood with a composed but tense posture. Tom asked what had happened, but Karen jumped in before Marcus could speak, her words pouring out in a frantic stream. She described Marcus as aggressive, claiming he had made her feel threatened, her voice rising with every word. Marcus tried to interject, explaining calmly that he hadn't done anything to her, but it was clear that Karen wasn't interested in listening. Tom scratched the back of his neck, looking increasingly uncomfortable as he tried to weigh the conflicting stories. He glanced around at the gathering crowd, aware that people were filming, and he seemed unsure of what to do. Karen's frustration turned to anger when she saw that Tom wasn't immediately siding with her. She pulled out her phone and announced loudly that she was calling the police. Marcus watched her dial, a sinking feeling settling in his chest. He had hoped this would de-escalate, but now it was spiraling further out of control. He could see the uncertainty in Tom's eyes, the way he shifted uncomfortably, clearly wanting the whole ordeal to be over. But the tension only mounted as Karen spoke into her phone, describing Marcus in exaggerated, accusatory terms. She threw a triumphant look at him as she finished the call, as if she believed she had won some unspoken battle. Marcus stood his ground, feeling the weight of every pair of eyes on him. He kept his voice steady as he told Tom he had done nothing wrong, but he could see the doubt in the young manager's face. He felt trapped, caught in a situation that was quickly spiraling out of his control. As he waited for the sound of approaching sirens, Marcus couldn't help but wonder how this simple trip to the store had turned into a public trial. Minutes later, the wail of police sirens cut through the air, growing louder as two police officers pulled up outside the grocery store. The crowd that had gathered parted slightly as they entered, their presence adding a new layer of tension. Karen rushed to meet them, her face flushed Her voice hurried and shrill as she painted herself as the victim. She pointed towards Marcus, who stood a few feet away, his shoulders squared, trying to keep his composure. She claimed that Marcus had threatened her, her words spilling out in rapid, agitated bursts. The officers listened, nodding slightly, but their faces remained unreadable. Marcus took a deep breath, knowing it was his turn to speak. He kept his voice calm, explaining that he had simply been shopping when Karen confronted him. But he could see the officer's eyes flick between him and Karen, as if weighing each story against the other. As the officers questioned him, Marcus noticed a woman in the crowd stepping forward. She was holding up her phone, her expression serious. It was Rachel, a shopper who had been quietly recording the entire incident. She raised her voice, telling the officers that she had video evidence of what really happened. Her words cut through the tension like a lifeline. The officers paused, turning to Rachel as she showed them the footage. Karen's confident smirk faltered as she watched the officers lean closer, their eyes fixed on the screen. The video clearly showed Karen approaching Marcus, her voice escalating while Marcus remained calm, trying to defuse the situation. The footage caught every word, every accusatory gesture, and the truth of who had been aggressive became impossible to deny. The officers exchanged a glance, their expressions shifting as they processed what they saw. They turned back to Karen, their questions now directed at her, pressing her for an explanation of her exaggerated claims. Karen stammered, struggling to defend herself, as the realization set in that her version of events was crumbling before her eyes. Marcus stood quietly, watching the shift in the officer's demeanor. Relief washed over him, mingling with the exhaustion of the entire ordeal. He caught Rachel's eye and mouthed a thank you, feeling a wave of gratitude toward this stranger who had stepped forward when it mattered most. For the first time, it seemed like the tide was turning in his favor, and the truth was finally coming to light. As the officers reviewed the video, their expressions grew more serious. Karen's initial confidence melted into nervous fidgeting. She tried to interrupt, insisting that she had felt genuinely threatened, but her voice wavered, lacking its earlier certainty. The officers held up a hand to quiet her, focusing on the evidence in front of them. The footage showed Marcus standing with his hands calmly by his sides, even as Karen's accusations grew louder and more hostile. One of the officers turned back to Karen, his tone firmer now. He pointed out that nothing in the video supported her claims of being threatened. Instead, it showed her approaching Marcus aggressively, while he tried to keep the pace. Karen's face flushed and she stammered, attempting to backtrack on her statements. She said she might have overreacted, that she hadn't meant for things to go out of hand. But the officers weren't swayed by her sudden shift in tone. They informed her that filing a false police report could carry serious consequences, especially when it involved such racially charged accusations. Karen's eyes widened, panic setting in as she realized the gravity of her actions. The earlier smugness she displayed had completely vanished, replaced by the fear of facing accountability. Meanwhile, Marcus stood a few steps away, listening quietly as the conversation unfolded. He could see the weight of realization sinking into Karen, and he felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. It was hard to believe that this entire ordeal had started over something as simple as grocery shopping. He glanced toward the crowd, noticing how the bystanders, who had been hesitant before, now looked with a mix of sympathy and regret in their eyes. Tom, the store manager, finally found his voice amidst the shifting mood. He approached Marcus, apologizing for not stepping in sooner and offering his support. He told Karen that her behavior was not welcome in the store, and she would need to leave immediately. Karen's face turned red as she tried to protest, but the stern looks from the officer silenced her. She realized that she had lost control of the situation completely. Rachel, the woman who had recorded the incident, stepped closer to Marcus, offering her contact information in case he needed the video for any legal matters. Marcus accepted it with a grateful nod, feeling a small but powerful sense of vindication. As Karen gathered her things and walked out, head lowered, the weight of what had truly happened settled over everyone present. The truth had come out, but it wasn't the outcome Karen had been expecting. As Karen hurried out of the store, the tension in the air slowly began to lift. The officers, now calmer, turned to Marcus with a look of respect. They offered him a sincere apology, acknowledging that things could have gone differently without the video evidence. Marcus nodded, accepting their words, though the weight of the experience still lingered in his chest. He had faced these kinds of assumptions before, but this time he knew he wasn't standing alone. Tom, the store manager, offered Marcus a handshake, apologizing again for not stepping in sooner. He promised to make sure something like this wouldn't happen in his store again. Marcus appreciated the gesture, though he knew the words alone couldn't change the underlying issues. Still, he felt a small sense of validation, knowing that the truth had come out, and he could walk away with his dignity intact. Rachel, the shopper who had recorded everything, lingered by the exit, waiting for Marcus. She handed him a piece of paper with her contact information, telling him that if he needed her video for any reason, she would gladly help. Marcus looked into her eyes and saw genuine kindness, a willingness to stand up for what was right. He thanked her, feeling a deep sense of gratitude toward this stranger who had made a difference when it mattered most. As they stepped outside together, the gray sky had started to clear, and a warm beam of sunlight broke through the clouds. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. For the first time that day, he felt the tension ease from his shoulders. He exchanged a few more words with Rachel, then they parted ways, both knowing that this encounter had changed more than just a single afternoon. A few weeks later, Marcus received a letter in the mail. It was from Karen, written in shaky handwriting. She admitted that she had been wrong, that she had let her assumptions cloud her judgment, and that the experience had made her reflect on her actions. She mentioned joining a local group to learn more about prejudice and promised to try to change. Marcus read the letter carefully, feeling a complex mix of emotions. He wasn't sure if Karen would truly change, but he hoped she would, for her own sake and for others like him. Marcus folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. He knew that forgiveness wasn't easy, but he also knew that this chapter had brought unexpected hope. As he walked through the neighborhood, seeing kids play and neighbors greet each other, he felt a sense of peace knowing that sometimes even the hardest moments could lead to new beginnings. What are your thoughts on the twist we uncovered today? Comment your ideas below. Make sure to like and subscribe for a daily dose of drama and mystery. See you later with another twist.